Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to al-Athar al-Islamiyyah, and welcome to our cultural season 27th. Tonight we have Ismat Jahan. Ambassador Ismat Jahan, a career diplomat from Bangladesh, is presently serving as the permanent observer of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation to the European Union in Brussels. Prior to this position, she was her country's ambassador to Belgium and the European Union. Specialized in multilateral diplomacy with focus on human rights, she has particular interest in issues concerning women's rights. She served on the UN Committee on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. Tonight, under the title Cultural Diplomacy as Means to Foster Global Peace and Peaceful Coexistence Between Communities, Ambassador Ismat Jahan will be discussing the role of cultural diplomacy as a major component of states' border public diplomacy, has been significant since the emergence of modern nation-states. Over the years, it has been acknowledged as an instrument of soft power. Such an understanding of cultural diplomacy sustained not only by individual countries, but also by international organizations such as the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, can be an important tool to remove misconceptions and foster trust and understanding by bridging gaps between cultures. This lecture will discuss several examples of relevant activities, with a focus on the portrayal of women in literature as a significant component of cultural diplomacy that seeks to generate admiration and perhaps emulation. We welcome the Ambassador Ismat to the stage.
Thank you very much for that excellent introduction. I don't know if I really deserve that, but thank you very much. Good evening and Assalamu alaikum. Excellencies, Sheikha Husna, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. I'm deeply honored to speak in this evening, and thank you, al-Athar al-Islamiyyah, for the kind invitation. My special thanks, of course, goes to Her Excellency Sheikha Husna and her excellent team for the hospitality that my husband and I have been enjoying since we stepped into Kuwait. And in my presentation today, I'd like to focus on the role of cultural diplomacy. The title is already there, and the role of such a diplomacy in promoting peaceful coexistence both at national, societal, and global levels. I'd also provide few illustrations on the portrayal of women in literature as a significant component of cultural diplomacy, which I believe may generate some cross-cultural interest. Excuse me for my voice, please. What I'd be saying today, I'm sure many of you know already, but I'd like to reaffirm certain points and bring into focus. Cultural diplomacy has been a major component of a country's broader public diplomacy, and it has been significant since the emergence of modern nation-states. Over the years, cultural diplomacy has gained recognition as a soft power. The American political scientist Joseph Nye describes it as, and I quote, the ability to pursue through culture, values, and ideas as opposed to hard power, which conquers or coerces through military might, end of quote. Cultural diplomacy thus serves as an important tool to foster cross-cultural trust, understanding, cooperation, and peaceful coexistence. I say peaceful coexistence between and among nations as well as within the countries themselves. At the state level, it may be used in nation branding, as often done in branding products through corporate marketing techniques. Such promotional objectives may range from shaping a country's national image or its reputation in international relations, mainly for the promotion of its economic interest, as for example in areas of trade, tourism, and investment, as well as its specific political objectives. Many countries have integrated culture in their development policies. Cultural diplomacy is reinforced by partnership with civil society, individual patrons, as today we have witnessed in our visit to the Tariq Rajab Museum of Calligraphy that has also promoted from individual patrons' interest, as well as other business leaders. The corporate sector as a whole often play a very important role in promoting cultural diplomacy. The diaspora plays a dynamic role in promoting cultural ties and mutual understanding between the peoples of two or more countries. At the national level, it is usually the Foreign Ministry and Cultural Ministry which are entrusted with the designing of policies, strategies, and conducting cultural diplomacy. Some countries may have specialized institutes for cultural diplomacy, a separate section in their respective embassies abroad, as well as language institute in foreign countries. As I understand, Kuwait's National Council for Culture, Arts, and Letters was set up with a clear vision to promote cultural and artistic development and conserving heritage and fine arts, including by broadening relations with foreign countries. The prestigious al-Athar al-Islamiyyah certainly deserves a special mention for its role in the preservation of the rich and rare collection of Islamic art. In practice, cultural diplomacy may take many forms, usually through promotional exhibitions, symposia, special performances, exchanges in the fields of arts, literature, music, films, theater, fashion shows, sports, education, scholarship programs, and so on and so forth to name, but not to forget the important role of culinary or gastro-diplomacy in cultural diplomacy. We all know that the easiest way to win hearts and minds is through the stomach. And if you have a look, you can see this is from Bangladesh, but you know it happens in every capital cities, that it's a promotion of food festival, international food festival, and promoting amity through cuisine. I mean, you know what it is, so I will go to the next slide. Here you see this is a fashion show of traditional costumes. This was organized by the Turkish embassy in Brussels recently. And this one is an exhibition, as you see, the big poster in an open public space. It was in Paris, 2019. It was conveying a very powerful message about global warming to many people. You can see this girl standing, and it's a barren land. And so, as you know, that why I'm referring global warming, because climate change is in many countries is also threatening peaceful coexistence of people. And now, one of the very fundamentals of cultural diplomacy in promoting peaceful coexistence lies in its advocacy for embracing diversity and inclusivity. In our present time, distances between communities have been narrowed down mainly through technological advancement. The social media, for example, allow us to meet on a second-to-second basis. But despite, or perhaps even because of these developments, we remain vulnerable to the agenda of hatred and intolerance, facing challenges of peaceful coexistence. Today, there is an urgent need for discourses and effective actions in building a societal and political environment which replaces the dangerous division of us versus them. In this regard, I'll stress that cultural diplomacy is not always about promoting a country's own national image abroad and in advancing cross-border trust and understanding among peoples with other countries, but cultural diplomacy can effectively and equally promote social cohesion and harmony among the people within a country, especially when the population is diverse based on distinct cultural, ethnic, linguistic, religious, and migrant backgrounds. Celebration of diversities helps in transforming prejudices and fear of the other. This especially holds true in a multicultural society, as I've just mentioned. Customs and traditions of each community deserve respect and protection as long as these are not bringing harm to others. In a globalized world today, many of us are now products of two or more cultures, living within the confines of our own home, especially in a foreign land. Our lifestyle and values may be governed by our specific socio-cultural tradition and customs, and by our religious and ethnic identities. However, outside our homes, it is not unusual to find ourselves struggling to be accepted as part of the mainstream society. This is a standard cultural duality that many children of migrants grow up with. This may, however, in the long run, prove to have some positive impacts in enriching multiculturalism in the society. But on the other hand, cultural integration must not mean a total disconnect from one's identity. What seems important is to seize the opportunity to pick and choose the best between the cultures. To give an example, in the United States, that many of you know, prides itself as a melting pot. Many of the immigrants have adapted to the so-called American way of life, but have not necessarily set aside the cultures and customs of their past. In fact, they have contributed to enrich the society in many ways. The combined heritage is often celebrated in multicultural festivals. This holds true for many countries and not only in the USA. Films, as well as musical performance, are powerful media that make instant and immediate impressions on the minds of the viewers, especially in the context of international audience. Films from South Asia, I may stress that especially, the dance sequences of such films are increasingly gaining worldwide popularity and are emulated in cultural programs, wedding events, and even in aerobic classes, the beats of those music. It is interesting to see how art and culture transcend geographical confines and take on a new flavor. Speaking of flavor, do you know what is the favorite British national dish? Well, yes, it is chicken tikka masala. It's not really British originally. To me, it is a perfect illustration of how our taste buds adapt to exotic influences of culinary delights imported from abroad. Ladies and gentlemen, the use of new and innovative technologies plays an important role in facilitating cultural interactions and solidarity with a wider global audience just by a switch of our thing. I will go to the next still image, but one can also play the music. It is Andrea Bocelli, Music for Hope, Stay Home. Yes, stay home was a very powerful message in the last 2 years that we have survived. It was an Easter Sunday in April 2020 when Andrea Bocelli, you know he's an Italian tenor, who gave a solo Music for Hope performance in an empty Duomo Cathedral in Milan. He sent a message of love, healing, and hope to millions across the world who watched on YouTube Live while remaining under coronavirus lockdown. So this is a very powerful way how cultural diplomacy can be used in promoting and bringing together people, promoting coexistence and bringing together people. On a more general note, I would say that music television series, including in my own country, Bangladesh, have gained popularity, showcasing, I should say it has gone trans-border popularity, showcasing a mix of local and international musicians performing together, creating a fusion music, which many may not like, but sometimes the end result is very good. And this fusion music adapts to local musical instruments and traditions and are being, where the performers are international. Now, I wish to leave behind some food for thought. On a note of caution, it is not uncommon to hear about cultural invasion, especially when a foreign culture can encroach on local culture, tradition, values, and even the language. Maybe it is not done deliberately, but it may happen automatically. In an extreme sense, this may overwhelm or even destroy the culture in the receiving country, thus impacting upon cultural diversity in a negative way. Just as I was entering this building this evening, I met Mr. Walid Thakur, and he said that language, Arabic language for kids is ongoing. And this is also to teach Arabic to local children who, by way of television or sometimes, speaking at home, they get more attuned to English rather than their own language. So this is how cultural diversity often gets eroded, but it's important to bear in mind that to maintain that cultural diversity, we have to give opportunities, and here the opportunity you are providing to these children is excellent. And I'd like to underscore the role of cultural diplomacy in language. It's very important. And in my own country, Bangladesh, we have 21st February, it's a Mother Language Day, which has got recognition internationally as International Mother Language Day by UNESCO. So each year it has been promoted to preserve one's mother language in respective countries. I think this is an important ongoing UN initiated International Mother Language Day, behind which was Bangladesh, of course, in pushing it at the UN, on the UN agenda. I'd like to underscore the role of cultural diplomacy in projection of shared heritage and collective identity linked with religion, ethnicity, tradition, as well in some cases in promoting joint political causes. Such an understanding of cultural diplomacy is sustained not only by groups of countries, but also promoted by international organizations, as for example, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. As many of you would know, The OIC is the second largest intergovernmental organization after the United Nations, with 57 member states spreading over 4 continents, including in Europe, it's Albania. The organization, since its inception in 1969, has consistently voiced its support for interreligious and intercultural dialogue, for promotion of cultural pluralism, mutual understanding between world faiths, and respect for diversity. Sadly, today, Islam and Muslims in general are facing challenges of peaceful coexistence in many parts of the world, not only in the West, but also in Asia. Phobia, as is in the case of Islamophobia, is an irrational fear, most often triggered by ignorance, misinformation, and even sometimes by promotion of deliberate fake news. Politicization of religion with the rise of ultra-nationalism has largely led to threatening or deepening of polarizations and threatening peaceful coexistence of diverse groups and religious minorities. The OIC as an organization has held a number of cultural festivals as platform to project the folklore, tradition, and heritage, and even culinary delights of its member states, along with holding of intellectual and cultural seminars. Such festivals, including those held on the occasion of the 50th anniversary 3 years ago, were useful in portraying the true image of Islam that promotes the values of tolerance and equality and rejects extremism and terrorism. This is very important, particularly in the days that we are going through. This, in essence, is an example of branding collective image of Islam through cultural diplomacy. To give an example, on the occasion of the celebration of the OIC Day, that's September 25, in Brussels, we showcased the music of OIC member states to the invited guests on the special occasion. This has, in fact, portrayed the rich and diverse. I'm saying diverse because, these 57 countries have different cultural heritage. So it has promoted the rich and diverse cultural heritage of the Muslim world, and this was much appreciated by those who had come to join us. And I would like to show clippings of the video from that day. I just selected few because I couldn't show, unfortunately, all the 57 member states.
مفتون قلبي في هوى الغزلان يعطي المسكين يطرد الهوى وكبري بالوى مفتون قلبي في هوى الغزلان يعطي المسكين يطرد الهوى وكبري بالوى مفتون قلبي في هوى الغزلان يعطي المسكين يطرد الهوى وكبري بالوى
musiqa mazmunini bayon qilish shart emas.
Okay. Thank you. As it says, the meaning of music does not need to be explained. So, back to my notes. Preservation and protection of cultural heritage of the Muslim world is also one of the OIC's top priorities in cultural diplomacy. In many parts of the world today, and most prominently in some of the organization's own member states, cultural heritage is facing destruction, not due to negligence and natural erosion, but by man-made destruction, mostly as a result of armed conflict and illegal trade and trafficking in arts and artifacts. I had the honor to accompany the then Secretary General of the OIC in June 2019 in The Hague, where Al-Babtain Cultural Foundation of Kuwait had co-organized the World Forum for the Culture of Peace. And part of it was devoted to protection of cultural heritage worldwide. And of course, we spoke about the need to protect the cultural heritage in the Muslim world. Now, in projecting the collective image of the Muslim world also, I think it is very important what, besides the member states of the organization, in respective capitals, as you have seen, what they have done, especially in the context of Brussels, but it is the diaspora who can also, in coordination with the local people, communities, can do a lot of promotion of cultural diplomacy and promoting understanding and peaceful coexistence. And sometimes it is to promote solidarity with a just cause, to name the cause of Palestine, which remains a top priority of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. And recently I participated in an event celebrating the twinning of the cities of Schaerbeek, Mr. Ambassador, you know, in Belgium, and Nablus in Palestine. This is an example of cultural diplomacy encouraging friendship and partnership between two cities through people-to-people contacts. Sadly, as I speak, even now, the city of Nablus is under a terrible siege by the Israeli military. But 3 weeks ago, or it was almost a month when this twinning was done, things were so positive, at least in the context of the people of Schaerbeek and Nablus. And I'll go to the next. Here is a civic reception and the cultural performance by the Palestinians living in Belgium on that occasion, and which was very important to showcase the image of Palestine to those who have not really known what the people of Palestine are in reality. That this, as you can see, is a shot from an Arabo-Andalou orchestra from Anjou in France. This is an event organized by a non-profit organization that offers music lessons to Palestinian children and has given them a chance to make their appearances in orchestras in the region and in some European countries to spread the musical culture of Palestine. Through music, the organizers wish to give another image of Palestine. To stay with this particular organization in Angers, France, its activities are not limited to Palestine only. They organize festivals where people can get to know cultures from different parts of the world, and many of such people, the local people, seize that opportunity. This was the cover picture that I had chosen. As you see, these are three ladies, young ladies from three parts of Asia who came to Angers, France in July 2022. And my husband and I, we are present there. And they were meeting for the very first time. I asked them, they never met before. But they gave a wonderful performance in perfect synchronization in this open-air concert. They are from three different cultural backgrounds. They are performing in France in a concert organized by a Palestinian, a French national of Palestinian origin, let me say, put it that way. And the audience was diverse. So this is really, to me, looked like a true example of cultural diplomacy in bringing together people through music. The success of cultural diplomacy in fighting prejudice, building trust, and promoting social inclusivity, that's the thread that I've been building. It depends on a collaborative approach involving both state and non-state actors. To have a deeper impact, it must be structured and conducted in a manner so as to reach the grassroots of the society, the common people, including through responsible and targeted use of the media, particularly social media and educational programs, starting very early in one's life. It's important to project young children, who we call kids, very early in their life to multiculturalism, because that will build them up as citizens of the society who are respectful to others. It goes beyond tolerance to respect others. So it is very important to imbibe that spirit in young people. And of course, engaging the youth, our future generation in the process, and women is extremely crucial. I am personally speaking, I'm a promoter of women's rights, and my dear friend Nabila is smiling. We did that together in Brussels. And so I will go to the next shot. It's Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore. I think many of you know about him. And through his short stories, I'll make some reference, excuse me, the portrayal, he had used the portrayal of women in literature as a significant medium of cultural diplomacy, or the socio-cultural diplomacy, let's me say. I would offer a few examples from the writings of Nobel laureate Tagore. He was a Bengali poet, born in British India, and was a philosopher, besides being a poet, a humanist, a visionary thinker, and a social reformer. He is credited for the national anthems of both Bangladesh and India. And many of Tagore's short stories focus on empowered women who had the courage to challenge the traditional expectations of patriarchal society during 19th and early 20th century. Tagore's heroines in the short stories were progressive, stood up for human rights and equality, openly challenging social injustices. Such portrayal of women in Tagore's short stories provided a fresh impetus and a perspective to the minds, encouraging acceptance of women as independent and self-assertive individuals in the society. This places Tagore far ahead of his time. To give a short illustration from his short story, I will just give an image here. Short story, Strir Potro, which literally means a letter from the wife. It's a typical illustration of a woman's ultimate claim to self-assertion. The whole story is narrated in a form of letter. In fact, the very first letter that the wife had written to her husband in their 15 years of marriage. You didn't have those, SMS and WhatsApp. The wife, Mrinal, her name, narrates the many injustices imposed upon women in traditional society. In so doing, she draws clear examples from her husband's own extended family, where her husband, who was he was portrayed as an otherwise a very nice and gentle person, but he was seen to be a silent and unprotesting spectator to many of the injustices meted out to women in his own family. This really made the wife think, and it took her 15 years. Huh? In concluding the letter, that's the story, the wife informs her husband of her decision to start off on a new life as an emancipated and independent woman, and emancipated from the unjust dictates of the society. This is a film made on that story, and this is the actress Mrinal, or the wife. She was married into a rich aristocratic joint family at the tender age of 12. She was chosen for her beauty. You can see the lady even portrays her beauty here. But it was her mind, her intellect, and a sense of self-respect which eventually led her to the final rejection of the so-called privileged life. Please remember, that was a time when such a bold step by a woman was socially unthinkable. In another story, Laboratory, written just few months before his death, Tagore expresses his latest views on women and gives shape to the new woman, urging women to find an identity of their own. Similarly, in his dance drama Chitrangoda, the princess demonstrates her prowess not only as a warrior dressed in a male garb, but also through her deeds, and standing as a stark contrast to the common depiction of women as fragile and docile. These stories have a universal appeal, transcending time and geographical confines, moving beyond eras, clearly illustrating that literature is a strong tool of cultural diplomacy. Speaking on a personal note, although not perhaps by conscious decision, the fact that the OIC's present ambassador to the European Union in Brussels and that two very prominent lady ambassadors of Kuwait, namely Ambassador Nabila Al-Mula, seated there, and Ambassador Amal Al-Ahmad, who could not come here today because she's traveling outside the country. They have both served in Brussels. These are good examples of confronting negative prejudices against Muslim women, particularly in the West. I am happy to note that al-Athar al-Islamiyyah during this cultural season has dedicated an activity, namely to Hiwar, Success is a Woman. And I am immensely happy to see that on 16th November, my dear friend, Ambassador Nabila, will be honored. I'm congratulating her in advance. To repeat myself, I'm getting closer to my presentation. Literature has been and remains a powerful medium for fostering global peace and peaceful coexistence. In one of his famous Bengali poems, again I am referring to Tagore, he underlined his vision of universalism and peaceful coexistence. Just to translate a few lines into English, it would read as, where the mind is without fear, where the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. What message did the poet wish to convey in those lines? Where the mind is without fear may suggest that one's mind can be fearless when there is peace and security in society, both internal as well as external. Where the head is held high would imply that self-respect and self-esteem are the basic requisites for the development of one's sense of individuality and identity. Thirdly, where knowledge is free would entail that the free flow of knowledge is the basis for an open and inclusive society. And the last line, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. It really underscores that mutual respect, understanding, and human solidarity can lead to harmonious coexistence in society, and that such coexistence is not obtained by building walls, but by building bridges. In closing, let me reaffirm that today, more than ever, we need conversations, dialogues, sharing of perspectives, and respect for diverse voices to deconstruct stereotypes and prejudices in promoting cultural diversity, religious pluralism, and peaceful coexistence. Adequate funding should be made available to perform cultural diplomacy. Here, I cannot resist the temptation to quote from US President Eisenhower's, from his, I need not quote because it's up on the screen, but just to say that every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. This is very powerful. So I just thought, to borrow from President Eisenhower, it is really a sad commentary on our collective conscience that today our disproportionate amounts of funds is spent on armament, which, if released, could have been used for promotion of multiculturalism and peaceful coexistence of humanity. Thank you very much for your attention. And I tried to keep within the time. The 3 minutes for this music, I think I would be excused for that, but I thought it was important to showcase that to you. And I'd be very happy to take in your questions and remarks if you have something for me. Thank you.